Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, looking out at the empty space around Kepler 442b. The planet looked normal from this distance. Brown and gray surface, no atmosphere, no signs of life. Just another dead rock in the outer rim of human space, the kind of planet that mining companies loved because nobody else wanted it. But Hyunwoo knew better. He had been stationed here for 3 years, and he had seen things that did not make sense. Ships came and went at odd hours, supply runs that brought in more materials than any mining operation should need, and sometimes, late at night when he thought nobody was watching, he could see lights moving under the planet's surface. "Captain," said Nari Choi from her communication station, "I'm picking up another encrypted transmission from the surface." Hyunwoo walked over to her station. Nari was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been trying to decode these mystery transmissions for months. "Same pattern as before?" he asked. "Yes, sir. High-frequency burst, heavily encrypted. It lasts exactly 12 seconds, then nothing for 6 hours. Hyunwoo nodded. He had asked his superiors about these transmissions many times. Each time they told him the same thing. Classified mining research. Nothing to worry about. But Hyunwoo had served in the Human Federation Navy for 15 years. He knew what mining operations looked like. This was not mining. On the planet's surface, Dr. Yoonji Park climbed out of the transport tunnel that led deep underground. She removed her helmet and breathed the artificial air of the construction facility. Around her, the largest engineering project in human history continued its silent work. The underground complex stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Massive machines, each the size of a city block, slowly carved through rock and metal. They were building something that the galaxy had never seen before, something that would change everything. "Status report," Yoonji said to her assistant. "Engineer, So-Young-hun. Sector 7 is now complete," So-Young replied, checking her tablet. "The primary fusion core is installed and ready for testing. Sectors 8 through 12 are ahead of schedule." Yoonji smiled. After 50 years of work, Project Aegis was almost finished. They had taken a dead planet and turned it into something incredible. Something that looked like a planet from the outside but was actually the most powerful warship ever built. The idea had come from Admiral Do-Hyun Lee. Back when he was just a young engineer, he had realized that humans had one advantage. Over every other species in the galaxy, they thought differently. While other races built bigger and bigger spaceships, humans had asked a simple question: why not build a spaceship out of an entire planet? It had taken decades to develop the technology. Self-replicating nanites that could work in zero atmosphere. Fusion reactors that could use a planet's core as fuel. Engines powerful enough to move a world. And most importantly, the ability to hide it all so that nobody would know what they were really building. "Any word from the other sites?" Yoonji asked. "Luna's Vengeance reports they're ready for activation testing," So-Young said. "Solar Fury is still 2 months behind schedule, but they should be ready before the deadline." Yoonji nodded. 3. Planet ships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. The galaxy thought humans were weak. They thought humans were just good at building space stations and mining equipment. They had no idea what was really happening in the outer rim systems. Back on the patrol ship, Nari was scanning alien communication channels when something caught her attention. She put on her headphones and listened carefully to a transmission from the Vorthak Empire. "Captain," she called out. "You need to hear this." Hyunwoo came over. "What is it?" "It's a Vorthak intelligence report. They're talking about human activities in the outer rim." Nari played the translation through the ship's speakers. The alien voice was cold and mechanical. "Human mining operations continue in sectors 7, 12, and 18. No military value. Ships observed are standard cargo vessels. No weapons detected. Threat level, minimal." Nari looked up at her captain. "Sir, they have no idea what's really happening here, do they?" Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. He had suspected that the mining story was fake, but this confirmed it. The aliens were watching human space, and they thought they knew what humans were doing. They were very wrong. "Keep monitoring," he told Nari. and send an encrypted message to Admiral Lee. Tell him the Vorthak are watching, but they don't understand what they're seeing. Deep underground on Kepler 442b, Admiral Do-hyun Lee received the message in his command center. He was 70 years old now, with gray hair and tired eyes. But when he read Nari's report, he smiled for the first time in months. They still think, "We're just mining," he said to his aide, Commander Jamin Song. "Should we be worried about their surveillance?" Jamin asked. "No," the admiral said. "Let them watch. In 50 years of construction, we've made sure that everything looks normal from space. Heat signatures match what you'd expect from mining operations. Ship traffic follows standard cargo patterns. Even if they scan the planet, all they'll see is rock and metal." The admiral walked to a large window that looked out over the construction floor. Below them, thousands of workers moved like ants, making final preparations for something the galaxy was not ready for. "How long until Terra's Wrath is ready for activation?" he asked. "Dr. Park says 2 weeks for final systems testing. After that, we can wake her up anytime you give the order." Admiral Lee nodded. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. Not because he wanted war, but because he knew it was coming. The galaxy was changing. The older alien races were getting nervous about human expansion. Tensions were rising, and humans needed to be ready. The Vorthak Empire had been making threats for years. They claimed that humans were expanding too fast, taking up too much space. Other alien races were starting to agree. The crystalline hegemony had already cut off trade with human colonies. The Federation Council was talking about placing limits on human population growth. Admiral Lee had seen this pattern before in galactic history. When the older races felt threatened by a younger species, they would find excuses to start a war. They would attack first, then claim they were defending themselves, but this time would be different. This time, the younger species would be ready. 3 days later, Nari picked up something that made her heart stop. Long-range sensors were detecting a massive fleet movement in Vorthak space. Hundreds of ships, all heading in the same direction. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking, "I think you need to see this." Hyunwoo looked at her sensor readings. The numbers were incredible. Over 10,000 Vorthak warships, all moving toward the edge of their territory, toward human space. "How long until they reach our borders?" he asked. Nari did quick calculations. "At their current speed, 6 days, maybe 7. Hyunwoo immediately sent an emergency message to Admiral Lee. The response came back within an hour. "Message received. All units maintain positions. Do not engage. Wait for further orders." On the planet's surface, alarms were sounding for the first time in 50 years. Dr. Yoonji Park ran through the corridors of the underground facility, her heart pounding. After decades of preparation, the moment had finally come. "All teams to activation stations," she announced over the facility's communication system. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Throughout the complex, thousands of engineers and technicians began the process they had trained for but never performed. Massive computers came online. Fusion reactors that had been sleeping for decades began to warm up. Weapon systems that could destroy moons started their initialization sequences. Admiral Lee stood in the main command center, watching status reports from all over the planet. His aide, Commander Jamin Song, was coordinating with the other planet ship sites. "Luna's Vengeance reports ready for activation," Jamin said. "Solar Fury requests 12 more hours for final preparations." "Tell Solar Fury they have 6 hours," the admiral replied. "The Vorthak fleet is moving faster than we expected." Dr. Yoonji Park arrived in the command center, still breathing hard from her run. "Admiral, Terra's Wrath is ready. All systems are green. We can begin activation sequence on your order." Admiral Lee looked around the room at the faces of his officers. These men and women had dedicated their lives to this project. They had worked in secret for decades, building something that should have been impossible. And now they were about to find out if it would work. "Dr. Park," he said quietly, "begin activation sequence." Yoonji nodded and walked to her control station. She placed her hand on a scanner, then entered a long series of codes. Around the room, other officers did the same at their stations. "Activation. Sequence initiated. Yoonji announced. Core temperature rising, gravitational stabilizers coming online. Estimated time to full activation, 8 hours. Far above them, on the surface of the planet, nothing seemed to change. The brown and gray landscape looked the same as always. But deep underground, something that had slept for 50 years was beginning to wake up. In space, Captain Hyun-woo watched his sensors carefully. He could detect small energy fluctuations from the planet, but nothing that would seem unusual to alien observers. The human engineers had done their job well. Even now, as Terra's wrath prepared to reveal itself, it still looked like nothing more than. 8 hours later, the planet began to change. Commander Jaemin Song watched the main display screen in the command center deep underground. Numbers and charts showed the status of thousands of systems across the planet. For the first time since construction began 50 years ago, everything was green. Core fusion stable at 97%, reported engineer So Young-han from her station. Gravitational field generators online. Structural integrity holding within normal parameters. Admiral Do-hyun Lee stood beside Jaemin, his hands clasped behind his back. The old man looked calm, but Jaemin could see the tension in his shoulders. 50 years of work were about to be tested. Dr. Park, the Admiral said. Begin surface. Reconfiguration. Dr. Yoonji Park nodded and entered a new series of commands. Throughout the planet, massive mechanical systems that had been hidden beneath kilometers of rock and metal began to move. On the surface, Captain Hyun-woo Kim was watching from his patrol ship when the impossible happened. The ground started to crack. Not like an earthquake, but in perfect geometric patterns. Huge sections of the planet's crust began to slide apart, revealing something underneath that made him gasp. "Nari," he called out. "Are you seeing this?" "Yes, sir," Nari Choi replied from her communications station. Her voice was barely a whisper. "The planet is opening up. Where there had been brown rock and metal ore, now there were gleaming surfaces that reflected starlight. Massive structures rose from beneath the surface, each one larger than the biggest space station in human space. Gun barrels the size of skyscrapers emerged from hidden compartments. Shield generators that looked like crystal mountains activated and began to glow. But the most incredible sight was the engines. Along what had once been the planet's equator, enormous thruster assemblies pushed their way through the crust. Each engine was hundreds of kilometers long, designed to move the mass of an entire world. "My God," Hyun-woo whispered. "They turned the whole planet into a warship." Inside the command center, So Young-han was managing the most complex engineering challenge in human history. She had to coordinate the movements of millions of mechanical systems while keeping the planet's structure stable. One mistake could tear the world apart. Sector 7 engines showing green, she reported. Sectors 8 through 12 coming online now. Gravity compensation at maximum efficiency. The artificial gravity systems were the key to making the whole project work. A planet was not designed to accelerate through space like a normal ship. Without careful gravity management, the forces involved would crush every living thing on the surface and tear the planet apart. But human engineers had solved that problem. Using technology adapted from gravity generators on space stations, they had created a field that could keep everything stable even when the planet was moving at incredible speeds. General Tai Ho-yoon arrived in the command center, having run from his position with the ground forces stationed throughout the planet. His job was to coordinate the military personnel who would operate Terra's Wrath once it was fully active. "Status of weapon systems?" he asked. "Primary fusion cannons charging," Dr. Park replied. "Missile batteries loaded and ready. Point defense systems active. We're detecting the Vorthak fleet on long-range sensors now." Admiral Lee walked to the main tactical display. It showed the approaching alien fleet as red dots moving slowly across a star map. 10,000 ships, the largest invasion force ever, assembled against humanity. "How long until they reach our border?" he asked. 46 hours at current speed," Jaemin replied. "And how long until we're ready to move?" Dr. Park checked her status boards. "Full activation in 6 hours. We can begin movement after that." The Admiral nodded. "Send coded messages to Luna's Vengeance and Solar Fury. Tell them to begin their activation sequences now. In the Rigel system 200 light-years away, Captain Min-Ho Bay received the activation order aboard Luna's Vengeance. Like Terra's Wrath, his planet ship had been disguised as a mining operation for decades. Unlike Terra's Wrath, Luna's Vengeance had been built inside an asteroid field, making it even harder to detect. Begin activation sequence, Min-Ho ordered, his crew. Around them, what the galaxy thought was just another asteroid mining facility began to transform. The asteroids themselves had been hollowed out and connected by massive tunnels. Hidden engines and weapons emerged from what had looked like empty space. But Luna's Vengeance was smaller than Terra's Wrath. It had been built for speed and stealth rather than raw firepower. Its job would be to strike fast and disappear, confusing enemy forces while the larger planet ships positioned themselves for the main battle. In the Tau Ceti system, Solar Fury was having problems. The planet was larger than the others, and the engineering challenges were more complex. Commander Subin O, who would eventually command Earth's shield, was there as an observer, learning from the difficulties they faced. Sector 15 is showing stress fractures, reported engineer Dongwook Shin. If we push activation too fast, we might lose structural integrity. How long do you need? Subin asked. 12 hours minimum, maybe 18 to be safe. Subin sent a message back to Admiral Lee. Solar Fury needs more time. Recommend proceeding with Terra's Wrath and Luna's Vengeance for initial engagement. The response came back quickly. Understood. Solar Fury will join when ready. Do not risk the ship for speed. Back at Kepler 442b, the transformation was nearly complete. Terra's Wrath no longer looked like a planet. It looked like what it really was, the largest, most powerful warship ever conceived. The surface was now covered with weapon systems, sensor arrays, and defensive shields. The engines were fully deployed, each one capable of generating thrust, equal to 1,000 normal Starship engines. And deep in the core, the fusion reactor was producing energy equivalent to a small star. All systems green, Dr. Park announced. Terra's Wrath is ready for movement. Admiral Lee took a deep breath. This was the moment he had planned for his entire career. Engage engines. Set course for the Vorthak fleet. The planet began to move. Captain Hyunwoo felt it first as a gentle vibration through his ship's hull. Then his navigation sensors began, showing readings that should have been impossible. The planet was accelerating. Nari, confirm our position, he ordered. Sir, our position relative to the star hasn't changed, but the planet is definitely moving. Current acceleration is 0.01. Standard gravity and increasing. Hyunwoo shook his head in amazement. Human engineers had found a way to accelerate an entire planet, without turning everything on the surface into paste. It was the kind of engineering that made other species call humans crazy. But it worked. Inside Terra's Wrath, millions of people continued their normal lives. Cities, farms, and industrial facilities that had been built on the planet's surface during its construction phase were all protected by the gravity compensation systems. Children went to school. Adults went to work. Most of them had no idea they were now traveling through space aboard the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The Vorthak fleet was still 2 days away when their sensors detected something impossible. Their science officers ran the readings 3 times before reporting to their commanders. Admiral Korthak, said the lead science officer, we're detecting a large gravitational anomaly in human space. It appears to be moving. Admiral Korthak looked at the display with 4 eyes that showed no emotion. The Vorthak were an ancient race, older than humans by millions of years. They had seen many things in their long history, but this was new. Define large, he ordered. Approximately the mass of a small planet, sir. But planets don't move on their own. Sensor malfunction? Negative, sir. All instruments confirm the reading. There is definitely something with planetary mass moving. Through human space, Admiral Korthak considered this. Humans were known for unusual engineering solutions, but moving planets was beyond anything they had ever demonstrated. It had to be some kind of trick. Continue on course, he ordered. But increase long-range scanning. I want to know what the humans are really doing. Dr. Yejin Kang was monitoring alien communications from her station aboard Terra's Wrath when she intercepted the Vorthak transmission. As a xenobiologist who specialized in alien psychology, her job was to predict how different species would react to human actions. "Admiral," she reported to Lee, "the Vorthak have detected our movement, but they don't understand what they're seeing. They think it might be a sensor error." "Good," Admiral Lee replied. "Let them stay confused as long as possible." Lieutenant Seung-woo Park was analyzing the enemy fleet composition when he noticed something interesting. "Sir, the Vorthak formation suggests they're expecting a conventional space battle. They have their heavy ships in the center, surrounded by lighter vessels for point defense." "Perfect," said General Tae-ho Yoon. "They're still thinking in terms of ship-to-ship combat. They have no idea what they're really facing." Terra's Wrath continued to accelerate through space, accompanied by the smaller but faster Luna's Vengeance. The two planet ships moved through human space like ancient gods awakening from long sleep. On Luna's Vengeance, Captain Minho Bay was coordinating with his engineering team to optimize their approach vector. His ship was designed for surgical strikes using the element of surprise to maximum advantage. "We'll come in from the asteroid field," he told his tactical. The Vorthak invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of human territory, confident and ready for an easy victory. Admiral Korthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive dreadnought that had conquered dozens of worlds. Around him, 10,000 warships took battle formation. "Begin long-range scanning of human defensive positions," he ordered his tactical officer. "Yes, sir." "Detecting standard human space stations and patrol ships. No sign of their main fleet yet." Admiral Korthak nodded. This was what he had expected. Humans always tried to delay battles until their scattered forces could group together. But this time, the Vorthak had moved too fast. The human fleet would not have time to organize a proper defense. "Set course for the nearest human colony. We'll destroy their orbital installations first, then demand surrender." But as the Vorthak fleet began to move deeper into human space, their sensors detected something that made no sense. Lieutenant Seung-woo Park had been right. They were completely unprepared for what was coming. "Admiral," called the science officer, "I'm detecting a massive gravitational disturbance directly ahead. It's huge." "How huge?" "Sir, it has the mass signature of a planet, but it's moving toward us at high speed." Admiral Korthak looked at the display screen with growing confusion. The readings showed something impossible. A planet-sized object traveling through space under its own power. It had to be a sensor error. "All ships, focus sensors on the anomaly," he ordered. Across the Vorthak fleet, hundreds of ships turned their most powerful scanners toward the approaching object. The results were the same from every vessel. Something with the mass of a planet was heading directly toward them. On Terra's Wrath, Admiral Do-hyun Lee watched the enemy fleet on his tactical display. After 50 years of preparation, the moment of truth had finally arrived. "Distance to target?" he asked. 2 million kilometers and closing," replied Commander Jaemin Song. "Luna's Vengeance is in position behind the asteroid field. Solar Fury reports they'll be ready to join us in 6 hours." Dr. Yoon-ji Park monitored the planet ship systems from her engineering station. "All weapons charged and ready. Defensive. Shields at maximum power. Core fusion operating at optimal levels." Admiral Lee nodded. "Open a communication channel to the Vorthak fleet." The main screen flickered, then showed the surprised face of Admiral Korthak. The alien commander had 4 eyes and skin that looked like dark metal. He was clearly confused by what his sensors were telling him. "This is Admiral Do-hyun Lee of the Human Federation," Lee said calmly. "You have entered human space with hostile intent. I strongly suggest you turn around and go home." "Human," Korthak replied, his voice filled with arrogance. "Our sensors show only one of your patrol ships in this area. You are outnumbered 10,000 to 1. Surrender now and we will make your defeat quick." Admiral Lee smiled. "I think you should look at your sensors again." Korthak turned to his science officer, who was staring at his instruments in disbelief. "Sir, the gravitational anomaly is definitely artificial. It's under intelligent control, and it's covered with weapon signatures. Impossible, Korthak said. Sir, I'm reading fusion cannons the size of mountain ranges, missile batteries that could hold 1,000,000 projectiles, shield generators powerful enough to protect an entire world. Admiral Lee's smile grew wider. Admiral Korthak, I'd like you to meet Terra's Wrath. She's what we call a planet ship, and she's about to show you why invading human space was a very bad idea. As Terra's Wrath moved closer, the Vorthak fleet finally understood what they were seeing. The object approaching them was not just planet-sized, it was actually a planet that had been converted into the largest warship in galactic history. Panic spread through the alien fleet as ship captains realized they were facing something completely outside their experience. Some ships began to retreat, others moved forward, desperate to engage before the planet ship could use its massive weapons. All ships, attack formation, Admiral Korthak ordered. Concentrate fire on the planet. 10,000 Vorthak warships opened fire at once. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and nuclear missiles streaked across space toward Terra's Wrath. It was the largest concentrated attack in the history of galactic warfare, and it had almost no effect at all. Terra's Wrath's defensive shields absorbed the incoming fire like a mountain absorbing raindrops. The energy that could have destroyed entire fleets barely made the shield readings flicker. Shields holding at 99.7%, reported So Young Han from her engineering station. No damage detected. Admiral Lee turned to General Tai Ho Yoon. You may return fire. General Yoon nodded to his weapons officers. Primary batteries, select targets. Fire when ready. The surface of Terra's Wrath erupted in light as its main weapons fired. Fusion cannons that could crack moons launched beams of pure energy across space. Each shot carried more destructive power than most species used in their entire wars. The first volley destroyed 300 Vorthak ships instantly. The second volley destroyed 500 more. The energy beams were so powerful that they passed through multiple targets, destroying entire formations with single shots. Captain Min Ho Bei watched the battle from Luna's Vengeance, hidden in the nearby asteroid field. It was time for his ship to join the fight. All weapons armed, he told his crew. Begin attack run. Luna's Vengeance emerged from the asteroids like a predator attacking from ambush. The smaller planet ship accelerated toward the Vorthak rear, formations, its weapons already charging. The aliens were so focused on Terra's Wrath that they did not notice the second planet ship until it was too late. Luna's Vengeance opened fire at point-blank range, destroying the Vorthak supply ships and support vessels before they could react. Second planetary mass object, screamed the Vorthak science officer. It came out of nowhere. Admiral Korthak stared at his tactical display in horror. His invasion fleet was being destroyed by two impossibly large warships, ships that should not exist, ships that made his most powerful dreadnoughts look like toys. How many of these things do the humans have, he asked. His science officer was monitoring human communications channels. Sir, I'm detecting references to something called solar fury. It sounds like there's a third one. Dr. Yejin Kang was also monitoring alien communications from Terra's Wrath. As a xenobiologist, she was fascinated by the psychological impact the planet ships were having on different species. Admiral, she reported, the Vorthak fleet is fragmenting. Some ships are trying to retreat, others are attempting suicide runs. Their command structure is breaking down. Lieutenant Seong Woo Park analyzed the enemy formations. They're completely unprepared for this type of warfare. Their tactics assume ship-to-ship combat between vessels of similar size. They have no response to weapons of this scale. Admiral Lee watched as the Vorthak fleet continued to disintegrate under the combined fire of Terra's Wrath and Luna's Vengeance. In 30 minutes of battle, they had destroyed over half of the enemy force. The rest were scattered and running, but he knew this was about more than just one battle. Word of this engagement would spread across the galaxy in hours. Every major civilization would learn that humans had capabilities far beyond what anyone had imagined. Dr. Kang, he said, what do you think the galactic response will be? Fear, she replied immediately. Most species will be terrified. They'll Assume we have dozens of these ships and start preparing for human expansion across the galaxy. And that fear will make them dangerous, Admiral Lee said. We need to be ready for the next wave. Across the galaxy, alien listening posts and spy networks were already transmitting reports of the battle. The news spread through diplomatic channels, military communications, and civilian networks with incredible speed. On the homeworld of the crystalline hegemony, their High Council went into emergency session when they received reports that humans had destroyed a Vorthak invasion fleet using weaponized planets. The Silicon Federation's central processing units calculated the implications. If humans could build planet ships, they could potentially conquer the entire galaxy. The tentacled collective's leaders began discussing whether they should surrender to humanity immediately or try to form an alliance against them. But the most dramatic response came from the Galactic Federation Council itself. Ambassador Ji-Hoon Lim was in his office on the Federation capital world when the emergency session was called. Ambassador Lim, said the Federation president, a tall alien with blue skin and silver eyes. We have reports that your species has deployed weapons of unprecedented scale against the Vorthak Empire. Is this true? Ji-Hoon had been briefed on Project Aegis years earlier, but he had never imagined it would be revealed so dramatically. Mr. President, humanity has developed defensive capabilities to protect our space from invasion. We used these capabilities to defend ourselves against an unprovoked attack. Defensive capabilities? The president's voice rose in disbelief. Our intelligence services report that you destroyed 10,000 ships using weaponized planets. How is that defensive? Before Ji-Hoon could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the Federation building. An aide ran into the chamber with urgent news. Mr. President, the aide said, long-range sensors are detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout human space. It appears there are multiple planet-sized. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation lasted for 3 days. Ambassador Ji-Hoon Lim sat in the center of the great circular chamber, surrounded by representatives from over 200 species. Most of them looked scared. Some looked angry. A few looked impressed. Ambassador Lim, said the Federation president, your species has fundamentally changed the balance of power in this galaxy. We need to understand your intentions. Ji-Hoon stood slowly. He was a career diplomat, trained to find peaceful solutions to complex problems. But this situation was beyond anything in his experience. Mr. President, honored representatives, he began. Humanity developed planet ship technology for one purpose, to defend our space from invasion. We have no desire to conquer other worlds or expand beyond our current borders. A representative from the Silicon Federation, a mechanical being with glowing red sensors for eyes, spoke up. You say you have no desire to expand, but your capabilities suggest you could conquer the entire galaxy if you chose to. That is correct, Ji-Hoon replied. But having the ability to do something does not mean we will do it. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species found it hard to believe that any civilization with overwhelming military superiority would choose not to use it. The representative from the crystalline hegemony, a tall being made of living crystal, asked the question everyone was thinking. How many of these planet ships do you have? Ji-Hoon paused. He had been instructed to be honest but not specific. Enough to defend our territory and maintain peace in the galaxy. That answer satisfied no one, but before the questioning could continue, an aide rushed into the chamber with urgent news. Mr. President, the aide announced, we are receiving reports of a massive fleet movement. 12 major civilizations are assembling their forces. It appears they're forming some kind of military alliance. Ji-Hoon felt his heart sink. This was exactly what Admiral Lee had predicted. Fear would drive the other species to desperate actions. In a hidden star system far from Federation space, the leaders of 12 civilizations met aboard a massive space station. They called themselves the Containment Alliance, and they represented the largest military coalition in galactic history. Admiral Vextar of the Crystalline Hegemony stood before a holographic display showing the combined fleets. Ladies, gentlemen, and various other classifications, he began. We face an unprecedented threat. The humans have shown they can build weapons that make our most powerful ships obsolete. Commander Zyklon of the Silicon Federation processed data at incredible speed before responding. Analysis confirms human planet ships represent technology centuries beyond current galactic standards. If allowed to multiply, they could dominate all inhabited space. General Mordak of the Tentacled Collective waved several tentacles in agreement. Our intelligence suggests humans have at least 3 operational planet ships. If we wait, they may have dozens. Then we strike now, said Admiral Kexith of the warrior clans, before they can activate more of these weapons. The plan was simple, but massive. The 12 civilizations would combine their fleets into one enormous armada. Over 50,000 ships from the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. They would jump directly into the Sol system and demand humanity's surrender. If the humans refused, they would destroy Earth itself. What they did not know was that Earth was no longer where they expected to find it. Captain Subin O stood on the bridge of Earth's shield, watching the final preparations for the most ambitious engineering project in human history. Around her, the command crew worked with quiet efficiency as they prepared to move humanity's homeworld. Status report, Subin requested. Gravitational stabilizers at maximum efficiency, reported engineer Dongwook Shin. Atmospheric retention, fields holding steady. Oceanic displacement within acceptable parameters. Moving Earth was far more complex than moving the other planet ships. Earth was not just a weapon. It was home to 12 billion people, countless ecosystems, and the entire infrastructure of human civilization. The engineering challenges had been enormous. They had to ensure that moving the planet would not disrupt weather patterns, ocean currents, or the delicate balance of life on the surface. Most people on Earth did not even know their planet was now capable of space travel. Dr. Kim, Subin called to the lead engineer. Are we ready to begin movement? Dr. In-Young Kim checked her instruments carefully. All systems green, Captain. Earth's shield is ready for activation. Subin nodded and opened a communication channel to Admiral Lee on Terra's Wrath. Admiral, Earth's shield requesting permission to begin departure sequence. Admiral Lee's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Subin could see the command center of Terra's Wrath. Permission granted, Captain O. Take good care of our home. Understood, sir. Beginning departure sequence now. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in facilities hidden from most of humanity, massive engines began to fire. The planet started to move, away from its orbit around the sun for the first time in 4 billion years. Most people on Earth felt nothing. The gravity compensation systems were so advanced that only the most sensitive instruments could detect the acceleration. But in space, Earth's movement created gravitational waves that rippled across the solar system. The Containment Alliance fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, expecting to find Earth in its normal orbit. Instead, their sensors showed empty space where the planet should have been. Scan the entire system, ordered Admiral Vextar from his flagship. Find the human homeworld. His science officers worked frantically, checking and rechecking their instruments. They ignored. Readings were impossible to believe, sir, reported the chief science officer. Earth appears to be missing. It's not in its normal orbit. What do you mean, missing? Sir, we're detecting massive gravitational disturbances throughout the system. It appears that Earth has left its orbit and is moving under its own power. Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Moving a planet was beyond the technology of any known civilization, but the sensor readings were clear. Earth was gone from its orbit and traveling through space. Where is it now? He asked. Sir, based on the gravitational trail, it appears to be heading directly toward us. In the depths of space, Earth's shield accelerated toward the Containment Alliance fleet. Around it, other human planet ships took formation. Terra's Wrath and Luna's Vengeance flanked the homeworld, while Solar Fury finally emerged from the Tau Ceti system to join the group. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Engineer Dongwook Shin had been working on a secret project during the construction of the planet ships. Using advanced matter conversion technology and self-replicating construction systems, The planet ships could build copies of themselves. Admiral Lee, he reported from his station aboard Earth's shield. Project Genesis is ready for demonstration. Admiral. Lee smiled grimly. Begin Genesis protocol. Throughout human space, dozens of asteroids and dead worlds that had been prepared in secret began their own transformation sequences. Using the same technology that had built the original planet ships, automated systems began converting raw matter into new weapons of incredible scale. Within hours, the Containment Alliance's sensors detected new gravitational anomalies appearing throughout human territory. What they thought were mining operations revealed themselves to be construction sites for additional planet ships. How many of them are there? Admiral Vextar asked his science officer. Sir, we're detecting at least 20 new planet-class objects under construction, and the number is growing. Panic spread through the Alliance fleet as they realized they were not facing a small number of superweapons, but an entire civilization that could build planet ships at will. Admiral Lee opened a communication channel to the Alliance fleet as Earth's shield and its escort ships approached. This is Admiral Do-hyun Lee of the Human Federation. You have entered our space with hostile intent and overwhelming force. I assume you're here to demand our surrender. Admiral Vextar's crystalline face showed no emotion as he replied. Human, your weapons threaten the stability of the entire galaxy. We demand that you disarm these planet ships and submit to galactic oversight. I'm afraid I can't do that, Admiral Lee replied calmly. But I have a counter-proposal. The main screen switched to show a tactical display of the local area. The Alliance fleet's 50,000 ships were arranged in attack formation, but they were completely surrounded. Earth's shield sat in the center like a fortress, while other planet ships took positions that blocked every escape route. You came here with enough ships to conquer most civilizations, Admiral Lee continued. But you're not facing most civilizations. You're facing humans, and humans have a tendency to build things that shouldn't be possible. As if to emphasize his point, more planet ships dropped out of hyperspace around the Alliance fleet. Each new arrival was another world that had been secretly converted into a weapon of unimaginable power. You have two choices, Admiral Lee said. You can attack us and be destroyed, or you can listen to what we're really proposing. Admiral Vextar looked at his tactical display. His 50,000 ships were outnumbered by weapons that could destroy entire fleets with single shots. For the first time in galactic history, a military alliance had encountered something that made The negotiation lasted for 7 days. President Hai Wan-jung sat in the main conference room aboard Earth's shield, facing holographic projections of the 12 alliance leaders. Around the table were Admiral Do-hyun Lee, Dr. In-young Kim, and other key figures in the human government. Outside the massive windows, the Alliance fleet hung motionless in space, surrounded by human planet ships. It was the largest gathering of military force in galactic history, but no shots had been fired for a week. Let me make sure I understand your proposal, said Admiral Vextar of the Crystalline Hegemony. You want to establish humanity as the galaxy's peacekeeping force, with the authority to intervene in any conflict between civilizations. Not just humanity, President Young replied gently. A coalition of civilizations working together to maintain peace. Humanity would provide the military capability, but decisions would be made jointly. Commander Zeklon of the Silicon Federation processed this information at high speed. Query: what prevents humanity from simply imposing your will on the entire galaxy? Your planet ships could destroy any civilization that disagrees with your policies. Dr. In-young Kim answered this question. Because that would make us exactly the kind of civilization we're trying to protect the galaxy from. Our goal is not control, it's stability. General Mordak of the Tentacled Collective waved several tentacles skeptically. Words are easy to say. How do we know you won't change your minds once you have complete power? Admiral Lee leaned forward. Because we already have complete power, and we're offering to share it instead of using it. This was the central paradox that the Alliance leaders struggled to understand. Humanity had built weapons that could dominate the galaxy, but instead of conquering, they were proposing cooperation. Admiral Sang-ho Kwan, commander of the planet ship construction fleet, provided a demonstration that helped clarify the situation. On his signal, sensors throughout the local area detected massive construction activity beginning on dozens of worlds. "We can build a new planet ship every month," he explained to the stunned Alliance leaders. "Our construction technology is fully automated and self-replicating. Within 5 years, we could have enough planet ships to place one in every major star system in the galaxy." The implications were staggering. If humanity chose to, they could place overwhelming military force anywhere in galactic space within a few years. "But we don't want to," President Young continued. "Building weapons is expensive and wasteful. We'd much rather build schools, hospitals, research facilities, and terraforming stations. We'd rather help civilizations grow than force them to submit," the Sci. Alliance leaders spent hours discussing this among themselves in private channels. Some still wanted to fight, believing that any outcome was better than accepting human dominance. Others were beginning to see the benefits of the proposed system. Admiral Kexith of the warrior clans was the first to voice what many were thinking. "If we accept your proposal, what happens to our military forces? Do we simply disarm?" "Not at all," Admiral Lee replied. "Every civilization needs ships for patrol, rescue operations, and local defense. What we're proposing is an end to large-scale military buildups designed for conquest." "And if one of our civilizations is attacked by pirates or raiders?" asked General Wexmore of the Defensive Alliance. "Human planet ships would respond immediately," Admiral Lee said. "No civilization that joins the Protectorate would ever have to worry about invasion again." This caught the attention of many smaller civilizations that had been listening to the negotiations. For millions of years, weaker species had lived in fear of being conquered by stronger neighbors. The human proposal offered something that had never existed before: guaranteed security for everyone. But the larger civilizations were less enthusiastic. They had built their power on the ability to threaten or conquer smaller species. The human system would eliminate that advantage completely. Dr. Yejin Kang had been monitoring communications across the galaxy during the negotiations. As a xenobiologist, she understood how different species thought about power and security. "President Young," she reported, "we're receiving messages from over 300 smaller civilizations. They're requesting immediate admission to the human protectorate." This news caused chaos among the Alliance leaders. If the smaller civilizations joined humanity, the balance of galactic power would shift permanently. President Young stood and walked to the large window that looked out at the gathered fleets. "Ladies, gentlemen, and various other classifications," she said, "I want to show you something." On her signal, Earth's shield began to demonstrate capabilities that went far beyond weapons. The planet's surface opened to reveal massive terraforming stations, medical facilities that could treat any known disease, and educational centers equipped with the knowledge of human civilization. "This is what we really want to build, President," Jung explained. "Not just weapons, but the infrastructure for a better galaxy. Imagine what we could accomplish if we worked together instead of fighting each other." Admiral Sang-Ho Kwan added to the demonstration by showing the Alliance leaders plans for projects that seemed impossible: space elevators that could reach between star systems, artificial worlds designed specifically for different alien species, research stations that could solve the fundamental questions of physics and biology. "With planet ship construction technology," he explained, "we can build projects on a scale that individual civilizations could never attempt. But we need partners, not subjects." The turning point came when Captain Subin Oh received an urgent message from deep space. "President Young," she announced, "long-range sensors are detecting a massive anomaly in the Andromeda galaxy. It appears to be some kind of invasion force." The main display showed sensor readings from humanity's most advanced detection systems. Something enormous was moving through intergalactic space toward the Milky Way. The energy signatures suggested technology, even more advanced than human planet ships. "How long until it arrives?" President Young asked. "Unknown," Captain Subin replied. "But based on its current trajectory, it will reach our galaxy within 50 years. This news changed everything. Suddenly, the disputes between galactic civilizations seemed petty and pointless. If an external threat was coming, they would need to work together to survive. Admiral Vextar was the first to speak. You knew about this invasion force? We suspected something was out there, Admiral Lee admitted. Part of the reason we built planet ships was to prepare for threats we couldn't yet see. Dr. In-Young Kim pulled up additional data. Our deep space monitoring stations have been detecting unusual signals from other galaxies for years. We believe there are civilizations out there that make our current conflicts look like children playing with toys. The Alliance leaders looked at each other with new understanding. Humanity had not built planet ships to conquer the galaxy. They had built them to defend it against threats that most species had never imagined. What are you proposing? Admiral Vextar asked. A true alliance, President Young replied. Not just for peace within our galaxy, but for protection against whatever is coming from outside it. Over the next 3 days, the framework for a new galactic government was established. The Human Protectorate would provide military security and large-scale engineering capability. Member civilizations would contribute their unique knowledge, skills, and resources. Most importantly, decisions would be made jointly. Humanity would not rule the galaxy. They would protect it while working with other species to guide its development. The smaller civilizations joined immediately, eager for the security and opportunities the system offered. The larger civilizations took longer to decide, but eventually most of them agreed as well. Some species chose to remain independent, but they were warned that they would be held responsible for their actions. If they attacked Protectorate members or disrupted galactic peace, human planet ships would respond with overwhelming force. The transformation of galactic society happened faster than anyone expected. Within 2 years, major conflicts between civilizations had virtually disappeared. Pirates and raiders found themselves facing planet ships that could destroy their entire fleets with single shots. Trade expanded dramatically as species no longer needed to maintain massive military forces. Resources that had been devoted to weapons production were redirected toward research, exploration, and improving living conditions. Captain Hyun-Woo Kim, who had first witnessed the activation of Terra's Wrath, now commanded a patrol ship that monitored the former Vorthak Empire. The surviving Vorthak had joined the Protectorate after their invasion force was destroyed, and they were now working on terraforming projects under human guidance. It's amazing how quickly things changed, he told Nari Choi, who was now his communications officer aboard the new ship. The planet ships made war pointless, Nari replied. When one side has overwhelming advantages, the other side has to find new ways to compete. Throughout the galaxy, the effects of the new order were visible everywhere. Former enemies worked together on joint research projects. Species that had been isolated for centuries began sharing knowledge and culture. Children grew up learning about cooperation instead of conquest. But the most impressive changes were in human space itself. With peace established, humanity began progeny